Week 1 is in the books. This is the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Yow, joined by the Titan Insider, Terry McCormick. Terry, it is now week 2 at this point, because looking back at week 1 is going to be real tough for all of us.
Yeah, it certainly did not turn out the way that the Titans or their fans hoped. Especially building a 17-0 lead and then just watching it melt away with the errors on special teams and a costly pick six where Levis was trying to throw the football away. So the way that one got away from them, if it comes down late in the year and you're looking, wondering, playing the what-if game as far as trying to figure out this scenario or that scenario, this one may come back and haunt you.
It's certainly going to hurt. We're going to talk a little bit more about it on the other side of a break. We've also got Patrick Dunn. He's going to join us and talk about week 2 as the Titans get set to play the Jets. And Patrick is the founder of the JetCast, one of the most popular New York Jets podcasts out there. So we're excited to talk to him about week 2. We'll get to that here in just a moment. On the other side of the break, we'll hear from Brian Callahan and Will Levis. We'll also, of course, get to our stat stuffers and the stock reports. So stick around here on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. We'll be back in just a moment.
Hey, Toby. Toby knows comfort, whether day or night. Through the highs and the lows, Toby knows. You've put it off long enough. That old system is just out with the old, in with the new. We'll make it worthwhile all the way through. Derryberry is your local independent train dealer. It's hard to stop a train. Visit DerryberryAC.com today and schedule a visit. Derryberry Heat and Air, making customers for life.
Being a part of a cooperative is being a part of something bigger. Farm Credit Mid-America is a customer-owned lender that specializes in agricultural financing for farm real estate, operating, and farm equipment. A unique benefit of being a part of the Farm Credit Mid-America Cooperative is our patronage program, which has put over $1 billion back in our customers' hands over the last 7 years. That's the power of a cooperative. Visit us at fcma.com to learn more.
I own the land.
I farm the land. Together we're farmers. This is our cooperative.
We gave them great field position. We had too many penalties. The turnovers were critical. We can't give up 17 points at the end of the day. That was our biggest issue. We gave up a block punt for a touchdown, an interception for a touchdown, and a long return in the kickoff game for a field goal. So really 17 points. I thought our defense played. It was a winning effort on defense. They did a really nice job. They made life hard for those guys exactly how we wanted to. And we just handed them points. And, in a game like that, that's going to be a little bit of a defensive battle. We have to make sure we don't make those mistakes, and those mistakes were critical and they were killer. And you hand any team in the NFL 17 points, you're gonna have a hard time winning. And to me, that's the story. I thought we came out and played how we wanted to in the first half on offense, other than the first drive, and just didn't have anything in the second half. Couldn't get going, couldn't get the run game going. Got behind the sticks, we had sacks and penalties and all kinds of issues. So disappointing in that regard. Couldn't keep drives alive. Weren't good on third down. So a lot left for us to clean up and get back.
I think recency bias from getting away with it the last time I did in the game, just trying to throw it in the dirt. Then when you're getting taken down, you don't know what's going to happen to the ball as it comes out. I was really just trying to dirt it. And in that situation, you try to handle it with a zero check or something, the first time bringing zero all game, and then or just take the sack. It might be one of those times just to take the sack. So one of a lot of things that I can learn from this game. I definitely can get better. I mean, there's things to take from this game all over, my game that I feel like I can look at and improve from. But like that one, it's not like I was even trying to throw the ball, but just knowing that in a situation like that, when you're pressured and you're going down, you don't know how that ball is going to come out. Just sometimes taking the sack is the right play. But I think I did a good job of just taking the throws that were there and taking off and using my legs when I needed to. But definitely a lot of things that I can get better on in that area as well.
Terry, I liked hearing that from both Brian Callahan and Will Levis, obviously taking full responsibility for that particular play, but also not getting bogged down in that play and saying, I did do some things well at times during the game. So how did you feel like what Brian Callahan and Will Levis said in the press conference, how does that translate going forward?
Well, I think it has to be a teaching moment. I think we all thought that Will Levis was past moments like this of just, kind of forgetting the situation and kind of losing his sense of awareness because it was third down on the interception throw. All he had to do, a sack or an incompletion, either one.
And Ryan Stonehouse is going to flip the field. I mean, he's got a cannon.
Exactly. Would mean a punt, unless it's blocked again, of course, but would mean a punt. And the way the defense was playing, that was the smart move to make, but he didn't make that move. And I think that, I heard somebody, I forget who it was, but I heard somebody say that Will Levis will be a good quarterback one day, but he has to learn by making mistakes and then not making mistakes, that same mistake again. If you're a Titans fan, then you better hang your hat on that comes to fruition, because that was an egregious error yesterday by Will Levis that wound up costing the Titans dearly. And you have to hope that the next time he's in a situation like that, tuck the football in your belly, take your 6-yard loss on the sack, bring the punt unit on. Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to do more than, you're capable of.
I mean, 6 yards in the grand scheme of things, it means absolutely nothing. If he takes the sack, it doesn't change much of anything on the backside of that. So, yeah, here's the thing. I don't think you'll ever see Will Levis make that mistake again. That's such an egregious mistake, and it was such a costly mistake. I mean, if that happens in the first quarter and they return a pick six, but you come back and win the game, maybe it doesn't make such a big impact on his mindset. But I have to think that the way that it turned out will stick in his mind forever. I mean, if he's ever going down, I don't think he's ever going to try to flip the ball forward again.
No, nor should he.
Here's the bad thing is there might be a time where he could maybe get an overhand throw and he doesn't do that either and throw it out of bounds because he's worried about it. So there may be a time in the future where it comes back to haunt you a little bit, but again, 6-8 yards means nothing in the grand scheme.
Yeah, and it's the timing of it, because they're still clinging to a 1-point lead. If you're in a game where it's in the final 2 minutes and it's fourth down and you are doing, or even third down, and you're doing anything to try and get down the field because you're down 7 points and you got to go down and score in that situation, nobody's faulting him for even that bad of a play. But just the nature of where it occurred on the field and when it occurred on the field, with you nursing a 1-point lead, your defense playing lights out, and knowing that they had Caleb Williams' number yesterday, really did not allow him to make a single big play with his arm. The defense played great. And to give it away like that with that interception coupled with the block punt for a touchdown just really leaves a bad taste in the mouths of all Titans fans this morning.
Oh, there's no question at all. And because I don't know where you're going with the stock report and the stat stuffers, it's really hard for me to go here. And I don't know, maybe this is where you're going to go. And if it is, just tell me and we'll get to it later. But I tweeted twice yesterday, special teams were awful. From kick coverage to punt coverage to punt blocking. I mean, outside of Nick Folk being Nick Folk and Ryan Stonehouse having a cannon attached to his right hip, it was bad.
Yeah, the return units, or the coverage units, I should say, gave up no telling how much hidden yardage in terms of allowing the Bears to start with good field position. And even though the defense was turning the Bears back for the most part and not allowing them to do very much, I think they got into the red zone maybe once all day. It still meant that when they forced a punt, it was backing the Titans up. Lots of drives, especially in the first half, started from inside their own 25-yard line, which makes it a little harder on the road to get something going. And you saw them struggle the first couple of drives before they got Tony Pollard in the run game going. But yes, as for stock down, special teams is right there.
No question. Well, let's get to our stat stuffers.
All right. Will Levis was 17 of 29 for only 127 yards, had the one touchdown, which was a nice throw to Chigakonkwo, but also had the 2 interceptions. There's your negative numbers for the day. Positive numbers, let's talk about the defense. Even though they only sacked Caleb Williams twice, they held him to 93 yards passing. They had 8 tackles for loss yesterday, and that's not counting 2 sacks. 8 tackles for loss, 5 quarterback hits. The only thing the defense didn't do that probably it could have or should have done to help this team out was get a turnover.
Didn't create a turnover. That and of course, giving the offense a short field certainly would have helped in the second half. But yeah, great performance from this defense, and looking forward to more performances like that, because it was clear that Awuzie and L'Jarius Sneed, putting Roger McCreary at the nickel, was an absolute game changer for this defense. They went from being very, very weak in the defensive secondary to that now being a strong part, which means that you're only going to allow Jeffrey Simmons and T'Vondre Sweat and Harold Landry more time to pressure the quarterback. So I think the defense played as well as you could ever hope for in a season opener. So big time there. Let's go now to the stock report.
Okay, as we already mentioned, we'll start with the stocks down, and we know the special teams unit certainly is culpable for part of yesterday's loss with the block punt and the yards given up on returns. DeAndre Carter was all over the field yesterday for the Bears as their return man, and certainly made an impact in the game for Chicago. Elsewhere, stock down, of course, Will Levis, and the fact that they were not really able to find a rhythm in the second half. Brian Callahan said that the Bears made some adjustments to their defensive front. Makes me wonder why the Titans didn't make a readjustment to kind of counter that, to try and get something going in the run game. Stock up, going with Tony Pollard, especially in the first half. He carried the load for this team, wound up with 82 yards rushing, had 57 of that, including a 26-yard touchdown on his first 7 carries. And then another place that I'm going as far as stock up, T'Vondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, and the defensive line. They controlled the line of scrimmage yesterday. They harassed Caleb Williams. They wouldn't let the Bears get a whole lot of room running the football. You saw Keandre Coburn come in as a rotational player, got a 19-yard sack and loss for the Titans, one of the 2 that they had on the day. So I'm giving the entire defense, but especially the defensive line, a stock up for the way that they played.
It was a great football game for that defense, particularly the defensive line. As you said, those 10 tackles in the backfield were huge for this team. Looking forward to seeing more of that. On the other side of this break, we are going to be joined by founder of JetCast, Patrick Dunn. So stick around here. We'll be right back in just a moment on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast.
He shoots, and he scores!
Nashville Sounds Baseball is back in Hit City for the 2024 season. Spend your nights and weekends at the ballpark with weekly giveaways, fireworks shows, throwback deals, live music, and more. Top talent will take the field at First Horizon Park against the AAA Minnesota Twins, Baltimore Orioles, Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds, and more. Tickets start at just $10 and are available now at NashvilleSounds.com. We will see you in Hit City.
Back now on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast, Chris Yow, Titan Insider Terry McCormick, and we are joined by Patrick Dunn, the founder of the JetCast podcast. And Patrick, thanks so much for taking time with us today, man.
Hey, thanks for hanging out. Love it.
Patrick, we'll get right to it here and talk about the Jets. I know they played tonight on Monday Night Football against the 49ers, but last year there was all the hype, all the buildup around Aaron Rodgers coming to the Jets, was going to finally placate such a tortured fan base, and he lasted all of 4 plays with the Achilles. This year, even though Rodgers is back, there seems to be a little less fanfare around the Jets. Is that a good thing that they're not being built up maybe as much this year as they were last year going into the Rodgers hype?
Well, yeah, I mean, I for one hate the distractions. I think it was a big distraction last year, having Hard Knocks and all that hype. I think the ability for the team to kind of focus on actual football and not focus on things outside of the building. Like Aaron Rodgers said, you got to keep the BS out of the building. You know, he's had a comment like that when he was hurt last year. And it's just a good thing. And us Jeff fans are a wreck today. I mean, I don't think I've been floating throughout the day. I don't think I've actually touched the ground because it's been over 500 days since Aaron Rodgers became a Jet. And, you know, if everything goes to plan, we're going to get to see him actually play for our team 3 times in the span of 10 days. So we're going to be drinking from the fire hose here. Yeah.
What are the other strengths and weaknesses of this year's Jets team? And, you know, you guys obviously have to see what, you know, happens tonight against the 49ers, but coming into Nashville, you know, for week 2, the Titans, their defense seems to really be on its game. The offense, obviously, still a work in progress, and certainly Will Levis struggled yesterday. But how do the Jets match up with the Titans in terms of just the 2 teams going against each other next Sunday?
Well, the biggest strength of the team over the last few years has been the defense. We had a top 5 defense last year. We have most of the same guys coming back, and the few that they did lose, they put comparable replacements in there, especially on the defensive line. I think even without Hassan Reddick showing up, because that's another distraction and headache that, you know, that we've been dealing with, they still have some capable pass rushers between Jermaine Johnson, Tack McKinley, and Will McDonald, and even Michael Clemens, who's a 4th-round pick from a few years ago. So I think from a defensive standpoint, they stack up very, very well against the Titans. There's no reason to believe right now that the defense will take any step back. It's the same coaching staff. It's basically the same. It's the same scheme. It's, for the most part, the same guys. And they have the best, in my opinion, the best cornerback trio between Sauce, DJ Reed, and Michael Carter II. From an offensive standpoint, we really don't know. You hope that Aaron Rodgers is still Aaron Rodgers. We have a 3-down back in Breece Hall. We have a dynamic playmaker in Garrett Wilson. He's supplemented with Mike Williams. He's supplemented with Alan Lazard. The offensive line has been improved. And from a change from last year, they're actually practicing together. You picked the best. You got the best left tackle probably you're ever going to have in the organization's history coming in from Dallas. So it's the optimism is there on paper. You know, it looks like the Jets should be able to win north of 12 games this year. But again, football is football. I had no idea Aaron Rodgers was going to get hurt 4 plays in last year. So we just don't know. And we're going to find out a lot tonight.
Another thing, too, there are some connections between the Titans and Jets. A couple of guys who were actually vilified here wound up in New York, and that being offensive line coach Keith Carter and former Titans offensive coordinator Todd Downing. What are their roles with the Jets, and how are they fitting in up there?
Downing at times is being allowed to call plays in practice. It seems like he's actually been a good, steady hand for Nathaniel Hackett. Hackett, he is the offensive coordinator, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers is really running that offense. So whatever play Hackett calls in, Aaron Rodgers has the ability to change out of it. And you know what? I trust him more than I do Hackett. So Downing has been, helping out with that communication between between Rodgers and Hackett. As far as Keith Carter goes, there was a lot of fans on this offseason that wanted to see him gone just because of the way the offensive line went, but the offensive line was another aspect of just injuries destroying the whole line. You had a rookie center in there who was kind of, again, thrown to the wolves. You had Elijah Vera Tucker, our right guard, who is, I believe, a Pro Bowl talent, and many Jet fans do believe he's a Pro Bowl talent. But again, he has an Achilles, so he's out for the season. And the tackle and the tackle positions were just a circus of guys coming in and out. Keith Carter seems to be the message that Keith Carter is giving now to the offensive line. The players seem to really be taking it in, and they're, like I said, they're actually playing together for a change. So again, it's just a lot of question marks right now as far as how that offense is going to operate and how smooth it's going to run. Week 1 is such a crapshoot when it comes to football. It's basically just another preseason game. The first half, you're really feeling out the other team. You don't make adjustments until halftime. So again, a lot of unknowns right now from the offensive side of the ball. I feel very confident on the defensive side of the ball, however.
Yeah, I got one more, then I'll turn you over to Chris. But, one comment before I ask the question about Keith Carter. One of the things, I guess, that where he kind of wore out his welcome here was that he was, I guess, kind of graded on the players. He was very hard on them and very demanding of them, maybe more so than your normal average line coach, which I know that's, kind of crazy sounded, but that was one of the reasons that he wound up moving on from here, was because he kind of worn out his welcome inside the O-line room with the players. And so now I got to ask this. I know you guys have Aaron Rodgers, and he's a stopgap because he's 40, 41 years old. Why is it that the Jets and the Titans are in a similar boat? Why is it that the Jets have never been able to develop any of these quarterbacks that they've drafted over the last 20 years? I mean, it can be argued that, the Titans and the Jets are kind of in the same boat. No one ever recovers from being drafted by the Titans or Jets at quarterback.
It's a lack of proper coaching. And I think it's also, at least recently with the CBA, a lot of these young guys come in and they're just thrown to the wolves. They don't have a chance to sit down. Aaron Rodgers got to sit for 3 years. Jordan Love, same thing. He got to sit down for 3 years. And look where the Packers are. If you pick someone high enough and you give them a chance to sit down and learn, I feel like that's the biggest thing for a quarterback. As far as the Jets go, we haven't had competent quarterback play since the early 2000s with Chad Pennington, to be honest. Mark Sanchez was a flash in the pan, and all of a sudden in 2011, they take all of his weapons away and they expect him to do everything. Geno Smith never really worked out, but he was another guy that, eventually went on and actually plays really well in Seattle. Another guy that took time. Sam Darnold. Look how well Sam Darnold played yesterday. I never wanted Zach Wilson. I was one of those guys that they should have kept Sam Darnold. I felt like the Niners came up to take Trey Lance at 3, gave up 3 first-round picks. You just imagine what we could have gotten for that second overall pick. And yeah, Sam Darnold would have had to get paid. He probably would have been on his team-friendly deal because he really hadn't done anything at that point. But you can't tell me now, yes, we have Aaron Rodgers because Zach Wilson was so horrendous. But you can't tell me now that the Jets would be in a worse position if Sam Darnold was still here. So Sam Darnold, just baseline, is a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson should have never been picked. I mean, he really didn't have any competition in BYU. He's late on all of his throws when you actually look at the BYU tape. He can't read a defense, and he barely made the team in Denver. So I don't think Zach Wilson was ever anybody that they should have taken. And there's a lot of rumors that Coach Saleh didn't want him either. I mean, he was benched 3 times during the whole tenure, and he kept having to bring him back because there was no one else playing quarterback. So it's a lack of pick. It's just a mix. It's a lack of picking the right guy and a lack of coaching. The reason why Chad Pennington back in the early 2000s was successful was because he was picked, got to sit for 2 years behind Vinny Testaverde, and he was picked by Bill Parcells. So I would trust his opinion on picking players than a lot.
Fair enough.
No question there. It is funny, though, that you mentioned that because I was sitting here thinking, I was like, man, Sam Darnold looked otherworldly.
Looked great
Yesterday.
Yeah.
So, of course, Justin Jefferson will make you look a lot better sometimes than you might actually be, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
I did want to look at this defense, and it's funny because as you look at the defensive front here, you've got Quinnen Williams and CJ Mosley, a couple of guys that we know really well down here in the South, being from Alabama. And I've got a buddy who got pushed around by Quinnen Williams quite a bit in a high school game. And
if you look at that 2018 Alabama team, if you look at that 2018 Alabama team and see how many of them are actually playing in the NFL and playing really well and getting second contracts, it's absurd.
It really is. And that's the exact word I was thinking was absurd. So let's talk about that. How, obviously if you watched yesterday and Chicago, they pushed the Titans offensive line around. Again, not a great offensive line from last year, but only 2 guys returned from that line. So how much of an impact do you feel like that front 7 will have for the Jets all season long, particularly obviously this weekend against Tennessee?
They're going to be the anchor of the defense, and they have to be the anchor of the defense. They have to get Reddick situation figured out too and get him in here. But, the Jets last year, their biggest weakness on defense was runs up the middle. They kind of got chewed up in the middle of the season there, with running between the tackles. And it's hard to say whether or not that was a situation where they were just tired. You get off the field, it's 3 and out, you're back on the field. There's no time for adjustments. You can't even take a break of water. You can't even take a breath, whatever it is. Or if it was actually scheme and player related. I feel like it was more of them just not being able to catch their wins, just being tired at that point. But the defensive line is the key to that. Is the key to that defense. Yes, we have some great corners rated by PFF and all the other analysts out there, but if you get any quarterback out of rhythm and get him rushing throws, that helps.
Patrick Dunn of the JetCast podcast. Patrick, tell us where they can find you.
All right, so you can check us out at JetCastPod. We're on every social media platform: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Just search at JetCastPod, and you can find us. We do a show on Twitter every Wednesday between 7 and 9. Terry, I think you're coming on this week.
I am.
Yep. And then we live stream almost every day. We have a beat writer that basically leaves the Jets facility, comes to his house, turns on his camera, and live streams for us. So, my name's Patrick, and at JetCastPod, again, every platform.
Thanks so much, man. We greatly appreciate it. That's going to do it for this week on the Tennessee Pro Football Podcast. Once again, follow at TerryMC13 on Twitter. You can also find TitanInsider.com. We will talk to you guys next week.